Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly into the misty paddies of ancient Vietnam. Just as the sun yawns its first golden sigh across the valley, you're already awake, if not fully conscious, listening to the warbling croak of frogs echo through the dawn-drenched fields. You lie on a woven mat, the bamboo floor creaking gently beneath you, and outside your hut's reed curtain, the chorus of amphibians ticks like a living clock. A neighbor's rooster crows late. It's the frogs that beat him to the punch again. You stretch, already coated in a fine sheen of humidity, and wonder vaguely if the croaks are louder today because rain is coming. Or maybe the frogs are just in a mood. Nobody fully knows. Historians still argue whether ancient Vietnamese peasants actively bred frogs for this sonic timekeeping or merely listened intently to the local population with uncanny precision. Either way, you're stuck with their schedule. And right now they're saying it's time to get moving. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is there. Pop it in the comments. Seriously, it's oddly satisfying to see how global our sleepy little corner has become. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle to the doorway, yawning and take in the scene. A faint layer of fog cloaks the paddies like a thin cotton blanket. Green rice shoots shimmer under dew. Somewhere nearby, a wooden bell rings lazily. No rush. You've got time. Well, technically the frogs do. They've already given you your first auditory signal of the day. Certain croaks carry a pre-dawn tone. Low, rhythmic, like someone flicking their cheek underwater. Locals say that's the wake-up call, and you've come to believe it. You swear the frogs shift registers depending on the hour. Science might tell you they're just marking territory or showing off for mates, but in this village, they might as well be the local monks. Your tunic sticks slightly to your back as you pull it on, still damp from yesterday's labor. There's no such thing as dry laundry during the monsoon season. Outside, the smell of wet earth mixes with the distinct aroma of fermented fish sauce drifting from your neighbor's kitchen. Breakfast is probably last night's rice warmed over with a duck egg. Maybe if you're lucky. You pad barefoot down the muddy path, past a sleepy dog curled under a cart, and greet an elder smoking from a bamboo pipe. He nods without opening his eyes. Everyone knows the day has started when the frogs say so. No one bothers with hourglasses. Clocks are for court officials in silk, not farmers knee-deep in water and mud. You glance at a nearby paddy, where a child balances with one foot on a submerged rock, mimicking the frogs with wet lips and a grin. It's a game. If your croak gets a real frog to answer, you're considered lucky for the day. Your younger sister used to do that, until she found a leech the size of her pinky finger clinging to her calf. She hasn't played since. Frogs, though, they're not just lucky. They're essential. Before sundials reached rural Vietnam, before imported timepieces clinked into the empire, the people listened to the creatures around them. Birds for seasons, cicadas for temperature. Frogs, though, were the poets of the wet rice cycle. Certain kinds, the rice paddy frogs, croaked more often before a rain. Others, like the ornate narrow-mouthed toad, squeaked in the heat of the afternoon. Local names vary. So do the legends. Some say the frogs were spirits of drowned ancestors. Others claim they're messengers from the sky dragons who bring the rain. A few very old villagers, even in your time, whisper that if the frogs stop croaking, something bad is coming. That last one hits differently, because one year they did. But that's not today. Today the frogs are singing in full stereo. You pass a bamboo water wheel that clicks and spins beside the stream, and each click somehow syncs with the frog's pulse. You scratch your neck. It itches from yesterday's sunburn, and make a mental note to slap more rice husk ash on it later. You cross a small wooden bridge slick with moss and pause to listen again. Croak, croak, then a long trill. You try to remember. Was that the almost noon sound or the rain incoming tone? An old woman once told you to watch the frogs' throats. The fatter the pouch, the closer the storm. You squint at one on the riverbank. It looks puffed up like a bellows. Not a good sign. Then again, She also said sneezing 3 times before dawn meant you'd get a marriage proposal within the month. That hasn't happened either. It's easy to forget you're part of something ancient here. These rhythms, frog croaks, rice cycles, the hiss of boiling tea in a cracked ceramic pot, they've been happening longer than your family can trace. You step over a frog, who seems entirely unbothered by your sandal scraping near his face. He resumes his croaking as if nothing had happened. Probably outranks you socially. A dragonfly lands briefly on your sleeve. You stop to admire its wings, veined like a cracked lantern, glinting blue-green in the morning haze. You exhale slowly. The frogs continue, methodical and persistent. Somewhere behind you, someone started pounding rice husks in a mortar. The thud joins the frog chorus, and now the whole village feels like one sleepy, rhythmic orchestra. The day stretches ahead, hot, wet, filled with the sticky rhythm of labor. But right now, you're just a speck in the soft breathing of the land. A frog chirps at your feet. You nod and keep walking. You reach the edge of your family's patties just as the croaks shift tone again. This one's sharper, almost annoyed, like a hiccup layered over a grunt. It's the breakfast call. Well, that's what everyone calls it. Not because frogs are unusually punctual, but because over generations, people just noticed that this particular sound usually happened when the sun hit a certain angle and your stomach started making similar noises. You slide your satchel onto a bamboo platform shaded by banana leaves and glance down at the waterlogged rows of rice. Their stalks are barely up to your shins now. You're in that in-between season where the fields look lush, but you know better than to trust appearances. One well-timed drought, one flock of bored ducks, one morning of lazy weeding, and half your yield's gone. The frogs, meanwhile, are thriving. Here's where it gets interesting. Mainstream history tells you the Vietnamese lunar calendar governed the agricultural schedule, planting dates, festival cycles, the whole shebang. And that's true broadly. But out here, where most villagers couldn't read the calendar and relied more on intuition than official proclamations, frogs filled in the gaps. It wasn't just the croaks, it was when they croaked, where, how loudly, and what kind of frog was doing the singing. You squat down beside a familiar clump of reeds and spot a friend. A small, black-spotted frog with a surprisingly smug face. You've named him Old Man Wet Feet. Partly because he always appears here, and partly because his croak sounds like a grandpa grumbling through a mustache. He's your local timekeeper. If Wet Feet croaks twice, and then goes silent, that usually means a storm by dusk. If he stays quiet all morning, clear skies. At least that's the legend. Modern biologists might jump in here to say frog vocalizations correlate with humidity and barometric pressure, but you'd argue, isn't that what farmers were doing all along, weather forecasting by frog? Historians still debate whether this was truly systematic or more of a poetic folklore spun into daily labor. But when your survival depends on knowing when to plant, when to flood the paddies, and when to drain them just right for transplanting, you pay attention to anything that chirps, buzzes, or blurts across the water. A few paddies down, you hear a different pitch. That's the tree frog register, more shrill, coming from the thick foliage where the fruit trees start. It means it's getting hotter. You squint at the sky, already a faint shimmer of heat above the fields. You should get weeding before the sun climbs too high. You wade into the paddy, water curling around your calves, and immediately feel that soft suction of mud trying to steal your sandals. They're made of woven palm fiber and entirely not built for traction. Every step is a squelch, a prayer, and a full-body negotiation with gravity. Behind you, the frogs continue. Now it's a trio, one call and 2 echoes. You feel like you're walking through someone else's conversation. It's oddly comforting, more predictable than human chatter, and with fewer opinions on marriage prospects or your posture. You reach a patch of stubborn weeds and start pulling, fingers slipping on their slick stalks. A dragonfly nearly dive bombs your nose, and you swat it away gently. Somewhere nearby, a frog makes a single solemn croak that sounds suspiciously like laughter. You mutter something unkind under your breath, which no one hears, except maybe Old Man Wet Feet. By mid-morning, your back is complaining, your arms feel like they've been in a noodle press, and the frogs have taken a break, likely hiding in the shade or having their own slimy brunch. It's the silence now that tells you what time it is. That's the real magic. You can tell the hour not just by frog song, but by frog absence. You glance toward the edge of the paddies, where a thatch-roofed hut leans like it's gossiping with the banana trees. That's where the village elder, Ba Nam, sits in her hammock. They say she used to be able to tell the lunar date just by sitting quietly for 10 minutes and listening to frogs. You once asked her how. She smiled and said, "Because they're nosier than people, and much more polite." You haul another clump of weeds out of the muck and shake your hand clean. A small frog leaps away in protest. Probably didn't appreciate the sudden landscaping. Every so often, you hear a human call. Someone shouting to a cousin, or letting their ducks out. But mostly it's the frogs. Their rhythms, their pulses, their strange little burping poems echo across the watery world. They mark time in a way clocks never could. Because here, time isn't something you chase. It's something that calls to you from the reeds and waits, patiently, for you to listen. You pause and lean on your hoe, sweat beading on your nose. The frogs have gone silent again. You know what that means. You glance up and yep, sure enough, a faint gust moves through the banana leaves, and the sky looks a little heavier than it did an hour ago. Clouds forming like quiet arguments in the distance. You shake your head. The frogs knew first. You head back toward the embankment as the wind starts its low, gossipy moan through the grasses. The frogs are still quiet, sulking maybe, or simply conserving their commentary. Either way, that lull speaks volumes. You toss your hoe into the grass and stretch your arms, back cracking in 3 different places. It's not even midday, but it feels like your spine's aged a decade. Time here isn't measured in numbers. It's a sequence of sounds and sensations. Wet feet, aching hands, wind patterns, and yes, frog songs. For you and your fellow farmers, the structure of the day rests on such delicate cues. The imperial calendars with their inked moons and careful symbols? You've seen one once, rolled up in the scholar's house like a sacred scroll. But you never touched it. Didn't need to. Your time was measured in croaks. And incense. Back at your family's small porch, a stick of incense leans precariously in an old seashell. Your grandmother's trick. She lights it at the same time every morning, and by the time it burns halfway, it's time to flood the lower fields. By the last curl of smoke, it's lunchtime. Between that and the frogs, no one needs a bell. You sit and watch the stick burn now, the sweet smell drifting over you. It mingles with the earthy scent of fresh muddied clothes and a faint tang of chili oil from next door's cooking fire. Your stomach rumbles on cue. But before you eat, you clean your feet. It's not just hygiene, it's superstition. Dirty feet invite leeches, and leeches invite bad luck. You dunk your legs in a wooden tub and flick off the clinging muck. One stubborn piece turns out not to be muck. It's a tadpole. You flick it off, mildly alarmed, and try not to think about how many others you've probably squished today without realizing. Historians still argue whether daily rituals like incense burning were more symbolic or practical. Some say they offered psychological grounding. Others claim they helped regulate time in the absence of visual cues, especially during overcast monsoon seasons. You'd say it's both. And also, you don't care. You just know it works. Your grandmother appears behind you like a cloud in a straw hat. She says nothing but points with her chin toward the sky. Thunderheads now. A flicker of light in the distance. You nod. She leaves a bowl of rice and pickled bamboo on the step and vanishes again. You eat slowly, methodically, eyes still scanning the horizon. The frogs are back. Just one, maybe two, starting low in the shadows. There's a different register now, drawn out almost like someone dragging a wet thumb across a flute. You've heard that one before. It means, the rain is closer than it looks. You finish your meal with 3 mouthfuls of cold tea and stand. Time to move the animals to shelter. Your family doesn't own much. Just 2 ducks, a wiry brown dog with a limp, and a suspiciously grumpy water buffalo who only respects your grandmother. He eyes you now as you wave him toward the shelter, and with all the grace of a furry glacier, he obeys. Frogs are louder now, more frantic. The paddy has gone from hush to humming, like a concert warming up. You pause to listen, ears attuned to every register. high chirps from the treetops, throaty trills near the drainage ditches. Someone once told you that the frogs call to the rain. Not predict it, but beg it. You wonder if that's true. It would make sense, wouldn't it? You sing to what you need. People sing lullabies for sleep, chants for courage, hymns for hope. Why shouldn't frogs croak for clouds? You head toward the higher paddies where the old irrigation trough needs adjusting. The frogs are deafening here, somewhere between a symphony and a plumbing mishap. It should be stressful, but instead it feels organized, as though each frog knows its part. One short burst, then two long ones, then silence, then a reply from across the field. You've played that game before, back when you were smaller. Echo the frogs. Try to trick them into answering you. If they did, it meant you'd passed the day's secret test. You smile at the memory, and then, almost involuntarily, you croak. It's pathetic. Somewhere between a cough and a hiccup. The frogs don't respond, probably offended. You try again, a little deeper. Silence. Then, from the far edge of the trees, a single croak replies. Slow, amused, maybe just pitying you. But it counts. You grin and keep walking. The irrigation trough is a carved bamboo pole held together with vines and optimism. You realign it, letting water trickle gently toward the new rows, and just as you finish, the first raindrop hits your arm. You hold still. It's warm, not a surprise. You look up just in time for the second drop to land square on your forehead. And then it's on. Rain falls in thick sheets, drenching the fields and flattening the reeds. You duck under a jackfruit tree, huddling in the crook of its broad roots, and wait. The frogs don't pause. If anything, they double down. The rain is their favorite concert. You sit, soaking, letting the water run down your arms, legs, neck, and in the background, the chorus. It's comforting, like they've got it under control, like nothing ever changes. And in some strange way, it doesn't. The frogs have sung the same way for centuries, maybe longer. Farmers have listened for almost as long. Empires have risen, collapsed, and been forgotten while someone, somewhere, crouched in a muddy field and said, "Did you hear that frog? Sounds like a storm." And they were right. You step out from beneath the jackfruit tree once the rain softens from torrential to tolerable. It's that kind of warm tropical drizzle now, just enough to trick you into thinking you might stay dry, until your tunic clings to your back like a needy ghost. Your sandals squelch with every step, and your toes have turned pruny. Still, the frogs are loving it. They're in full throat now, like someone turned the volume up and then forgot where the knob was. Every clump of reeds seems to have a spokesperson. Some croak low and slow like temple drums. Others squeak so high-pitched you swear only the birds can hear them. And in the middle of it all, you, trudging through shin-deep water, a walking mud sculpture with a to-do list. Today's job, transplanting. You reach the edge of a field where the rice seedlings, those delicate green threads you've been nursing in nursery beds, are ready for their next phase. One by one, you'll pull them, mud and all, and plant them into the flooded paddies in rows straighter than the local tax collector's scowl. Your grandmother says, "The gods love a tidy field," though you're not sure they'd mind a few bent lines if they tried this work themselves. You roll up your sleeves, though it makes no difference now, and step into the sticky water. The feeling is immediate and unforgettable. Cool mud oozing between your toes, sucking slightly at each step like it doesn't really want to let you go. You bend over, fingers finding the soft bundles of seedlings by feel more than sight, and begin. Each planting starts the same. Scoop out a hole, tuck in the seedling, smooth the mud around it like you're tucking in a baby for a nap. Repeat, and repeat again, and again. You fall into rhythm just like the frogs. There's something oddly meditative about it. The work is monotonous in the best way. Your body moves while your mind floats. Around you, the frogs become a lullaby. Somewhere between the glub-glub near your feet and the distant rikrr by the banana grove, your thoughts dissolve. It's like your brain accepts the mud as home, the croaking as music, and your aching spine as inevitable. But it's not all peace and frogs. Because something brushes your foot, you freeze. Not because you're scared necessarily, but because there's a very short list of acceptable things that can brush your foot in a Vietnamese paddy, And even the best-case scenario is accidental toad cuddle. You look down. Nothing visible. The water's cloudy from your movement, and the rain's added ripples. Could have been a stick. Could have been a leech. Could have been that same water buffalo who hates you, coming in for a sneak soak. Then you feel it again. Okay, definitely alive. You backpedal. Fast. Nearly lose your balance, and fall hard onto your rear with a splash loud enough to make a nearby frog audibly offended. You scramble up, wiping mud from your face, and stare into the water like it just insulted your ancestors. Then, from the reeds, it emerges. A turtle. A mud-covered, sleepy-eyed rice-field turtle. You sigh, half-laugh, and try not to look like you were moments away from declaring war on a waterlogged rock. The turtle, for its part, seems entirely unimpressed. It blinks once and waddles back into the water like your very presence is inconvenient. You nod respectfully and get back to planting. A few patties over, a kid is singing to the frogs. It's not a song, you know, something improvised, mostly nonsense syllables and giggles, but the frogs are answering. Whether by coincidence or courtesy, you'll never know. You smile, twisting another seedling into the mud. Back straightens, then bends. Hands sink, then rise. The frogs set the tempo. You keep time. Somewhere in this repetitive act, you start to think about how deeply everything is tied together. The frogs don't just fill silence, they shape it. Their croaks reflect temperature, moisture, time of day, even the mood of the coming night, and all of it folds into the farmer's rhythm. Historians still argue whether farmers in ancient Southeast Asia truly scheduled their entire routine by amphibian acoustics or if it's just romanticized oral tradition. But you know what? You don't need a university debate to confirm what your back and your ears have already told you. The frogs know things. Your grandmother once told you about a wedding that was postponed because the frogs refused to croak. The night before, silence. On the day, drizzle. Guests took it as a bad omen. The marriage was delayed 3 months. The bride eventually eloped with someone else. Some blamed her heart. Others blamed the frogs. You finish the last row just as the sun finally wins its battle with the clouds, poking through in smeary rays that light up the patties like emerald sheets. The frogs quiet a little, content now, and the water reflects a sky made soft by mist and labor. You lean on your hoe and stretch, your back humming with effort and your arms streaked with mud. Your face is itchy, but every inch of your skin feels alive. And in that stillness, mud up to your calves, frogs calling softly in the distance, you feel something like pride. This isn't flashy work. There's no glory in knowing that frog number 7 calls out 5 minutes before frog number 3. No trophy for planting 30 straight rows in perfect frog tempo. But it matters. To you, to the land, to the frogs. You head back toward your satchel, stopping to splash some of the mud off your hands in a clean runoff stream. The frogs croak again, higher now, questioning, maybe asking if you're done. You nod. For today. The sky has cleared to that gauzy late afternoon gold, where the light hits every puddle like a prayer. You make your way toward the village again, passing rows of banana trees drooping from the rain, and the frogs? Oh, they're back at it. But not just any croaks now, these are the weird ones. You pause beside a mossy stone and listen. There's one call that sounds like a laugh filtered through a bamboo tube. Another sounds like a hiccup in slow motion. But the one that catches your ear is long, melodic, almost flute-like. That one always shows up when something strange is about to happen. Your grandmother says it's the invitation croak. You remember her exact words. That's the sound of the spirits getting restless. Either they're coming to bless your rice or borrow your sandals. She said it with a wink, of course, but then again, she also tied red thread to the corners of the house during that one thunderstorm, just in case. And so begins one of your favorite rituals. Frog summoning. You arrive at a small clearing near the base of the forest, where a few older kids are already setting up. There's a bamboo flute lying across someone's lap, and incense burning in a cracked clay bowl. These rituals aren't official, not the kind with temple bells or solemn prayers, but they matter in their own way. Somewhere between play and belief, tradition and trial run. The flute starts up. The tune is slow, dreamy. like someone trying to imitate wind with breath. It rises and falls in waves, and within moments the frogs respond. A chorus of croaks echoes from the brush. Loud, enthusiastic. A few kids cheer quietly. One claps, instantly shushed by someone who insists the frogs will get embarrassed. You sit cross-legged on the damp grass, joining the semicircle. No one really leads. Everyone just listens, contributes, blends. One girl taps two smooth stones together. A boy hums into a gourd. Someone else shakes a handful of beans in a pouch. Historians might dismiss this as children's games or accidental music therapy, but here, it's functional. These sounds are believed to call down the rain, or at least to encourage the frogs to call harder. And if frogs croak more before a storm, then logically, if you get them croaking, you increase your odds. That's the logic, anyway. Circular? Sure. But then again, so is the lunar calendar. You take the bamboo flute for a turn. It's chipped on one end and smells faintly of pickle brine. Likely shared storage with someone's lunch, but it sings true. Your breath is uneven, your notes uncertain, but the frogs answer anyway. One near your foot gives a proud honk. Encouraging. This ritual's roots go deeper than the moss you're sitting on. Some say it began during a particularly bad drought, when the villagers had no other recourse. No wells, no backup rice, just hope and frogs. They gathered in desperation, mimicked the frogs, prayed with sound, and the rain came. Whether the frogs summoned it or just knew it was coming, no one ever quite agreed. But the ritual stuck, and maybe there's something deeper happening. Maybe your flute isn't just a noisemaker. It's a message, a nudge, a polite suggestion to the sky. Hey, we're ready when you are. Even modern researchers admit amphibians are highly sensitive to vibrations and tones. Some believe frog populations actually respond to subtle sonic frequencies in their environment. So when you blow a note that matches the pitch of a natural predator, or the hum of rising humidity, they answer back. Whether out of warning, confusion, or community spirit, who knows? You hand the flute off and clap softly, part of the tradition. Not loud, not rhythmic, just a gentle clap of thanks. The frogs are still going strong, the field alive with layered sound. If you close your eyes, you might forget where you are, or what year, or whether you're still awake. And maybe that's the point. The light begins to dim now, not dark yet, but mellow, like the sun is exhaling for the evening. You feel the humidity change, too. It's cooler now, cleaner. The kind of air that follows a good chant, a good croak. An elder appears quietly from the path. You didn't even hear his sandals approach. He joins the circle without a word, pulls out a hand-carved frog-shaped rattle, and shakes it once. The frogs weirdly pause. He shakes it again. This time, the frogs come back with gusto, louder, layered, near hysterical. The group giggles nervously. The elder just shrugs. They like him, someone whispers. He smiles but says nothing. This is the part that stays with you. Not the flute, not the incense, but the shared silence after sound, the echo of something ancient responding to your small voice. It's what makes this feel real. Not myth, not folklore, just the way things are. You head home slowly, half hoping a frog follows you. You glance over your shoulder once and swear you see one watching, half submerged, eyes wide like moons. Or maybe it's just a leaf. Still, you nod respectfully. Can't hurt. The next morning begins not with light, but with sound. A single frog, tucked beneath the thatch just outside your window, lets out a low, burbling note. You've heard that one before. It's the too early to get up croak. And you agree. You shift under the woven blanket, stretching your limbs against the stiff mat. It's cool in the hut now, the kind of crisp that only lasts an hour before the sun floods the valley and turns everything into soup. But the frogs have already started their symphony. If yesterday was a concert, today's a rehearsal. Sporadic calls in all directions, overlapping but not quite in sync. Still, it's enough to tell you. It's the third day of the frog moon. That's not a date you'll find in any formal calendar. Not on the scrolls in the scholar's home or in the village temple records. But locals know it. The frog moon, refers to the first quarter of the lunar month, when the moon hangs like a tilted bowl in the sky and the frogs croak more often, louder, and with mysterious determination. Some say it's their mating season. Others think it's the week when spirits return to the fields. Historians still argue whether this period had any astronomical significance in Vietnamese farming communities. Was it linked to actual lunar phases or just seasonal patterns? You're not sure, but you do know this. The frogs are louder and the fish in the river are jumpier, and if your grandmother catches you sleeping in, she'll assign you compost duty. You sit up, rubbing your eyes. The hut smells faintly of charcoal and sweet rice. Your morning tasks await, but for now you just listen. Out in the paddies, you can already hear the dull splashing of someone starting their irrigation rounds. Maybe Cousin Din. He's always up before the sun, swearing that he hears the frogs better when the world's still half asleep. You've tried it before. All you heard was your own yawning. You head out with your satchel slung across your shoulder, passing the incense dish where another stick is already half burned. Tilts precariously, smoke curling like a lazy snake. The sound of frogs is everywhere now, layered like a loop. Some deep, some shrill, some with that uncanny honk that makes you glance around like someone's mocking you. You arrive at a shaded bend in the river. This one's not used for bathing or laundry. It's too shallow and filled with reeds. But it's one of the best places to watch the frog calendar unfold. You crouch beside the bank and wait. And there it is. A frog leaps from the mud and lets out 3 short croaks, pauses, and then 2 long ones. You count them out like drum beats. That pattern, that's the signal for market day, according to old Banam. She swears that when the frogs croak in 7s, 3 then 4 or 4 then 3, it means the traders will be passing through. You once asked her how the frogs knew. She looked you dead in the eye and said, "Because the traders are loud." You don't question it anymore. As you watch, another frog joins in. This one is smaller, pale green, and seems perpetually annoyed by gravity. It slips on a rock, recovers with great dignity, and croaks spitefully at the world. You like this one. The frog calendar isn't official, of course, but it's effective in its way. Certain croaks mean morning fog. Others suggest flooding. Some warn of the days when the wind will blow strong enough to dry the paddies too quickly. Over generations, farmers have matched frog behavior with field conditions so tightly it almost feels like magic. Or maybe it's just what happens when you have no watch, no weatherman, and a lot of time to observe the squishy locals. You wander to a neighboring hut where Uncle Bin is laying out baskets of dried herbs. He's got a frog perched on one of the baskets, looking entirely too smug. Uncle Bin grins and says, "This one croaked 13 times yesterday. Rains in 2 days." You raise an eyebrow. 13. He nods solemnly. Not 11. Not 12. 13. You want to challenge him, but the frog stares at you like it's daring you to contradict its math. You nod and continue on. Later, you help your cousin set fish traps in the irrigation channels. He ties a string to a stick and presses it into the muddy bank. The trick, he tells you, is to set it when the frogs go quiet for the 2nd time in the afternoon. That lull, he insists, means the fish are shifting under the water. Why? No one knows. Maybe the frogs send a memo. It's a weirdly precise schedule if you listen carefully. First chorus at dawn. Second burst by mid-morning. Long lull around noon. Then a resurgence in the early evening right before dinner. And if there's a 5th act after sunset, you know it's going to rain. Or something else is coming. Something not quite explained. It's hard not to feel like the frogs are in on some larger plan. Like they're not just weather tellers, but mood shapers. The way they fill the silence keeps things in balance. Too much human noise, and it's exhausting. Too little, and it's eerie. But frogs? Frogs are perfect. Just enough chaos to make you feel alive, but steady enough to lull you into rhythm. That night, as the lanterns begin to glow in scattered windows, and the scent of tamarind broth wafts through the village paths, you settle into your usual routine. You sit by the doorway, a bowl of sticky rice on your lap, and just listen. Croak, chirp, pause, repeat. Your grandmother joins you, sitting with a gentle sigh. "Do you know what tomorrow is?" she asks. You shake your head. She smiles. Frog festival. You blink. That's a thing. She nods. Was. Maybe still is. Ask the frogs. And with that cryptic whisper, she disappears inside, leaving you alone with the stars and a calendar written in sound. The next morning arrives like a soft drum roll, rain tapping the roof in quick, polite rhythms, and frogs croaking as if they'd rehearsed overnight. Your grandmother wasn't kidding. Today is the Frog Festival, not the kind with banners or temples or parades. This festival is quieter, older, a ritual passed in whispers and elbow nudges, more gesture than ceremony. It's not even on the same date every year. It lands when the frogs start gathering in strange clusters, usually after 3 days of heavy croaking during the frog moon. Today's that day. You slip on your damp tunic. It never really dries this time of year, and head outside. The ground is slick, the sky the color of oversteeped tea, and all around, frogs. So many frogs. You spot them perched on banana leaves, peeking out of drain holes, piled 3 deep on sun-warmed stones like sentries. It's not just more frogs than usual, it's organized, like a meeting or a watch party. You head toward the village square, where a few elders have already gathered beneath the old tamarind tree. There's a woven mat rolled out on the dirt, and in the center, someone's placed a bowl of mung beans, a flute, and, most curiously, a small wooden frog figurine, carved with intricate spirals along its back. You recognize the carving. That's the ghost frog, a figure from old tales. According to village lore, it holds the spirit of a long-lost ancestor who once saved the rice harvest by speaking directly to frogs. Yes, speaking. In full sentences, allegedly. Historians, of course, are less convinced. They say the ghost frog is likely a regional adaptation of broader Southeast Asian animal mythology, possibly tied to animist belief systems and agricultural cycles. But none of that matters to the kid next to you, who is staring wide-eyed at the little statue like it might blink at any second. You sit with the group, joining the semicircle. There's no priest, no formal structure, just stories, the kind you're not quite sure are true, but feel like they should be. Someone begins the tale of the ghost frog. They speak softly, their voice smooth as oiled bamboo. Long ago, they say, a terrible drought struck. The paddies cracked, the fish died, and the frogs, once loud and laughing, fell silent. Without their croaks, the farmers had no timing, no signs, no way to predict the weather. They grew frantic. Then one night, a boy followed a single frog deep into the woods. The frog led him to a stone, and from beneath that stone came a voice. Not a croak, but human words. The frog spirit told him how to call the rain, how to wake the sky. The boy returned, taught the ritual, and ever since, frogs have been both guides and guardians. Is it true? Who knows? But when the story ends, no one speaks. Not for a long moment. The frogs fill the silence instead, as if punctuating the legend with their own commentary. You feel it, then, how the boundary between myth and memory blurs when you're sitting in wet grass, surrounded by mud, incense, and the eerie awareness that the frogs are louder today, like they know they're being honored. An elder places a slice of sticky rice cake in front of the wooden frog, an offering. Someone else pours a few drops of sweet tea into the dirt. You add a wildflower you plucked from the path. Seems right. Then comes the part you didn't expect. The apology. Each person around the circle leans forward, whispers something into the air, and taps the ground. It's not prayer. It's confession. Quiet acknowledgments of frogs squashed, water polluted, crops over-harvested. A moment to say, we notice, we remember. Your turn comes. You hesitate. You think back to last week, accidentally stepping on a frog near the water wheel. You didn't see it. It made no sound. But when you lifted your foot, the sight turned your stomach. You remember feeling oddly ashamed, not just for the loss of life, but for disrupting the chorus. A note missing in the paddy's daily music. So now, you whisper, sorry, and tap the ground twice. After that, the circle relaxes. People start chatting again, the kind of casual murmurs that follow a deep exhale. Someone laughs. Someone sneezes. A baby wails, is immediately soothed with a clump of rice, and resumes cooing. Then the children take over. They dash around the square with palm frond hats too big for their heads, trying to mimic frog calls. Some succeed with shocking accuracy. Others end up sounding like hiccuping chickens. But no one cares. This is part of the festival, too, joy in mimicry, reverence through play. One boy, maybe 7, crouches in the mud and croaks so well a real frog jumps toward him. Confused, he gasps and bolts, laughing so hard he drops his hat. You find yourself grinning. It's impossible not to. The morning drifts on like incense smoke. Soft, slow, pleasant. There's no climax to the celebration. No fireworks. Just food, stories, and frogs. A gentle acknowledgement of the odd, shared language between humans and the slippery, croaking creatures who seem to know more than they should. On your way home, you pass the old fish traps near the reeds. A frog sits beside one, blinking lazily, as if guarding it. You nod in thanks, even though you're not sure why. That night, you dream of frog choruses and glowing reeds. And when you wake, you're not entirely sure the festival ended at all. The sun is high when you slip off your sandals and sit on a flat rock by the irrigation ditch. It's lunchtime, or, as the frogs apparently consider it, intermission. Their chorus has dimmed to a lazy percussion of intermittent croaks, like they're all taking naps or sipping invisible tea. You open your bundle. Cold sticky rice, pickled garlic, a thin smear of fermented fish paste wrapped in banana leaf, and today's bonus, a slice of dried mango. Your stomach grumbles in appreciation, but you eat slowly, savoring each bite. The soundscape is calm now. Dragonflies zipping like tiny kites, wind teasing the banana leaves, the occasional sigh of a shifting water buffalo. Then something squelches behind you. You pause mid-chew. Subtle, wet, deliberate, not frog-like. Too slow for a lizard, too quiet for a dog. You turn just in time to see a leech the size of a toddler's finger flopping toward the ditch like it's late for a meeting. You blink. It blinks, probably. You're not sure leeches have eyelids. Either way, it's a hard no. You scoot higher up the rock. Leeches are part of the daily bargain. They come with the mud, with the damp, with the rice paddies. They're like overly affectionate interns. Clingy, silent, and absolutely certain they're helping. You've learned to check your ankles after every field walk, gently peel them off, and flick them into the distance like squishy darts. But still, lunch with leeches isn't ideal. You notice a girl nearby doing the same ankle check. She's found 2, neatly coiled on her calf like bracelets. She plucks them off without flinching, wipes her leg with a scrap of cloth, and goes back to her rice. That's just life here, mud, blood, and pickled things in jars. Leeches aside, it's a good time to reflect. The midday lull is a sacred window of nothingness. Even the frogs mostly respect it. You recline slightly, letting your arms flop beside you. Your feet dangle in the ditch, and your thoughts drift like leaves. You think about how leeches, frogs, and fish all operate on invisible schedules that somehow sync with yours. It's a kind of choreography no one taught you, but you follow instinctively. Croak, plant, rain, pull, soak, repeat. Historians still puzzle over how ancient rice farmers managed time so precisely without formal tools. Some theorize it was all observational learning, sun positions, moisture levels, bird calls. But the amphibian connection? That part rarely gets written down. Too folk, too unscientific. Yet here you are, checking your chores against frog calls and knowing it works. You remember one story your uncle told, about a time years ago when someone brought a mechanical clock into the village. A real, brass one, ticking loudly like a nervous beetle. Everyone gathered around to watch it chime. But after 3 days, they sent it away. It didn't match the frogs, someone said. Threw off the rhythm. Made people anxious. You'd believe it, because clocks have a kind of tyranny to them, dividing the day into sharp-edged segments. But frogs? Frogs nudge time forward with soft elbows. You don't live by the croak, you live with it. It's companionship, not command. A rustle in the bushes breaks your reverie. A dog, grinning and mud-soaked, trots into view with a frog in its mouth. You shout. The dog pauses, drops the frog, who hops away indignantly, and disappears as quickly as it came. You shake your head, muttering a half-prayer to the frog gods for mercy. That dog's luck might just run out soon. Across the field, someone calls out. It's your cousin, waving you over. You sigh, pull on your sandals, which are now soggy and full of grit, and head back into the paddy. But something's changed. The frogs are warming up again. Not the full-throated thunder of a storm warning, but a curious mid-afternoon warm-up. You hear an odd pattern. 2 croaks, silence, 1 croak, splash. Then again. Feels intentional, repetitive. You glance at the sky. Blue, clear, no signs of rain. So what are the frogs talking about? You whisper this to your cousin as you reach him, and he grins. That's the leech pattern, he says. You blink. The what? He nods solemnly. Frogs do that when the leeches are bad. Too many in the mud. They start sounding off. You want to laugh, but then you remember. Today's leech encounter wasn't exactly subtle. So maybe he's right. Maybe the frogs are warning you, or complaining. It's possible. Frogs eat leeches, don't they? You bend to your work, cleaning the edge of the trough, digging out mossy clumps, and try to listen more carefully. The croaks continue, like hiccups in rhythm, a code you haven't cracked. It reminds you of something an old monk once said during a passing visit. Frogs sing not just because they live, but to say how they live. You didn't understand it then. Now, ankle deep in water, arms slick with algae, and the distant croak of a disgruntled frog in your ear. Maybe you're starting to, because when the frogs croak during lunch, you check your legs. When they're silent at dawn, you check the sky. When they echo in certain pitches, you move your buckets, rearrange your traps, shift your schedule. And when they're singing just to sing, just for joy or for no reason at all, you stop for a moment and do the same. You find yourself back at the edge of the village just before twilight, where the forest fingers out into the lower paddies and shadows fall longer than seems reasonable. The frogs are warming up again. Slow, round croaks from hidden pockets of brush, layering into something like a sleepy drum circle. It's familiar, comfortable. And then it hits you. Tonight is one of those nights you don't go to bed right after dinner. Not tonight. Tonight is the night you accompany Uncle Ben to check the moon traps. Moon traps are simple. Wooden cages, shaped like baskets, baited with fermented rice mash and tied near water channels. The name isn't about the moon itself, it's about when they're checked. Always at twilight. Always when the moon is just barely starting to hang its pale face above the hills. You grab your woven torch and a small sack and meet Uncle Ben by the tool shed. He's already chewing a sprig of lemongrass and muttering to himself. His dog trails behind, half asleep, tail wagging like it forgot how to stop. The two of you head down the narrow path into the reeds, torch bobbing, shadows playing tricks on your peripheral vision. The frogs are louder now, their calls crisp and rhythmic. Croak, pause, splash, repeat. But then, somewhere up ahead, snap. You freeze. Uncle Ben's torch steadies as he stops beside you. Step quiet, he says in that voice that suggests you'll definitely regret doing otherwise. You step forward carefully, the ground slick with moss and ghost-pale mud. Then you hear it again. Not a frog, not a splash, but a definite shuffle. And then something long slithers across the trail, just a flash of shadow, followed by silence. You don't breathe for a second. Neither does Uncle Ben. Then he sighs. Monitor lizard, he says. Big one. You exhale, but not all the way. Monitor lizards aren't dangerous unless provoked, but let's be real. You've got no interest in testing the lower end of that assumption. You both keep moving, but now your ears are sharper. You start to hear everything. The snap of twigs, the hum of dragonflies, the low creaking of bamboo in the breeze. And always, always the frogs. The traps are spaced evenly along the irrigation ditch. The first one's empty, the bait soggy and untouched. The second has a small catfish, and Uncle Ben lets out a grunt that sounds suspiciously like approval. The third, though, that one surprises you. Inside is a frog. A large, mottled specimen with eyes like wet coins and a body that looks slightly too confident for its situation. It's just sitting there, like it meant to be caught. You kneel, shining the torch a little closer. The The frog blinks slowly. Then it croaks once, loudly, defiantly. "Let it go," Uncle Ben says. "That one's no dinner. That's a message." You raise an eyebrow. "A message?" He shrugs. "They don't end up in moon traps by accident. Not unless they want to say something." You're not sure if he's joking. That's the thing about Uncle Ben. He says everything like he might be serious, which somehow makes you want to take him more seriously. You open the trap, tip it gently, and the frog hops out with dignified grace, vanishing into the reeds like a magician exiting stage left. You almost feel honored. You check 3 more traps. One has a snakehead fish that nearly bites your fingers. Another holds a crab that looks deeply confused. The last one has nothing at all. Just a puddle and the distinct smell of fermented rice gone slightly evil. By the time you reach the final trap, the moon is out, round and full, hanging low like it's eavesdropping. The frogs are loud again, but there's a different quality now. Not more croaks, just sharper ones. Like they're saying, "Go home. We've got it from here." You and Uncle Ben head back without speaking much. The air is cooler now, and the night smells of wet wood and old earth. You pass a small stream where frogs line the bank like monks in silent meditation. You pause for a moment, squatting down just to watch them. One leaps, another adjusts itself like it's getting comfortable, and then a third, so small it could fit on your thumbnail, lets out a high, crystalline croak. It's perfect, like glass being tapped. You glance at Uncle Ben. "That one's new." He nods. "Storm frog. What's it mean?" He looks at the sky, then at you. "Means tomorrow'll be the kind of wet that makes your bones wrinkle." You laugh softly, then fall quiet again. Because maybe it's true. Maybe these frogs do know. Maybe that's all the village ever needed. Just enough croaks to interpret, enough signs to follow, enough reasons to go slow. Historians might categorize this as weather lore or pre-modern observational science. But to you, it's just how the world speaks. You listen and it tells you when to plant, when to wait, when to go home. By the time you return to the hut, the frogs are still at it. Soothing, distant, steady. You wipe the mud from your arms, light the corner lantern, and sink down into your mat. Outside, the frogs croak. Inside, you close your eyes. And tomorrow, you'll listen again. You wake with a start, not because of any sudden sound, but because of the absence of one. Silence. No frogs. You sit up slowly, heart thudding just a bit faster than it should. The usual morning humidity still presses down. The reeds still sway in the wind. The paddies still glisten with dew. But the frogs? Gone. Or rather, quiet. No croaks. No chirps. Not even a raspy breath from old man wet feet under the stairs. You step outside barefoot, the earth soft and cool beneath your soles. The village feels paused. Even the dogs are subdued, as if they've sensed something's not quite right. You glance to the east, clouds, but no rain yet. The kind of overcast sky that looks more suspicious than threatening. Your grandmother is already awake, of course, squatting by the fire pit and poking at a pot of morning porridge. She doesn't look up as she speaks. They're quiet. You nod. Why? She stirs once, slowly. Not sure, but it happened once before. Long time ago. That catches your attention. You kneel beside her, ignoring the growing stickiness of the morning air. When? She squints toward the paddies. When I was your age. Year of the snake. 1783. You blink. That long ago? She nods. The frogs stopped for 5 days. No one could sleep. Too quiet. Then came the fever. She says it with such calm that it takes a moment to register. The fever. She finally looks at you. It took 17 people. Mostly children. You don't know what to say. You want to brush it off, call it coincidence, folklore. But the hush outside feels heavier now. Like the silence itself is watching. Historians still argue whether events like this, the croak crisis as some call it, were real or exaggerated. There's scant documentation beyond oral records and a single village priest's weather diary full of strange notations. No frogs again today. Fields too quiet, air sharp, like metal. But something about it lingers in local memory. Your grandmother shifts her weight and ladles porridge into a clay bowl. Eat. We'll go check. You eat quickly, though each mouthful feels larger than it should. The food sticks in your throat. Outside, the village is beginning to move slowly. People walking in pairs, whispering. Children unusually quiet. You join your grandmother as she heads toward the lower paddies. She moves with surprising speed for someone who complains about her knees. At the dike, she squats low, palms cupped near the mud, and listens. Nothing. No croak. Not even a rustle. She points. Dig. You kneel beside her and begin scooping mud away from the base of a large reed cluster. Your fingers slide over roots, worms, and wet soil until you touch something soft, rubbery. You dig faster. It's a frog, still alive, just quiet, breathing, watching, unblinking. Another, and another, dozens of frogs, all pressed low against the mud, completely silent, hiding, meditating, waiting. You look to your grandmother. Why are they so quiet? She wipes her hands on her tunic. Something's off. Maybe the air. Maybe the water. You sniff instinctively. The breeze does smell different. Faintly metallic, like an old coin pressed to your tongue. The sky remains dull, unmoving. By midday, word has spread. The frogs are silent everywhere. Along the canals, behind the temple, even in the forest pools. Your uncle swears he walked 3 miles and didn't hear a single chirp. Someone starts burning cedarwood near the stream. A protective measure, they say. Keep away the fever. You don't know what to believe. That night, the village feels like it's holding its breath. Without the frogs, the quiet is oppressive. Your ears reach out, desperate for sound. A distant cough, creaky door, but not a single croak. You lie awake on your mat, eyes fixed on the ceiling, trying to slow your pulse. Even the usual insect chorus seems hesitant, like the whole natural world has agreed. We'll wait. In the morning, a rumor spreads. A boy is sick, feverish, muttering nonsense. His parents say he was fine the night before, but now he speaks in riddles. Mentions frogs without mouths. You hear the second hand, standing by the water trough with a group of other nervous listeners. No one dares to say what they're thinking. Your grandmother appears behind you. We'll go see him, she says. You nod, heart heavy. You walk in silence. Still no frogs. The boy's hut is at the edge of the village, near a thick cluster of tamarind trees. You recognize his mother. She sells dried mango at market. She meets you at the door, eyes wide and red-rimmed, but says nothing. Inside, the boy lies on a mat, shirtless, drenched in sweat. His lips move but make no sound. He turns his head slowly, eyes unfocused, and you swear, for one moment, he looks directly at you. Then he says something so soft you almost miss it. Too many. Your grandmother leans closer. What child? He repeats it. Too many. They listen. They remember. Then silence again. You leave with more questions than comfort. But as you step outside, you pause. Did you hear that? One croak. Low, raspy. A single note. Then another. And another. From all directions. A tentative, cautious, returning chorus. You look at your grandmother. She smiles faintly. They're back. You stand in the doorway listening. The frogs don't sound cheerful. More like the aftershocks of something vast and invisible. But they're there. They're singing. Whatever passed, it passed. For now. The frogs are back, but they're different now. Less rhythmic, more reflective. Like old men muttering in a bathhouse. Their croaks come at odd intervals, interspersed with long silences. Still, the sound is a comfort, a return to the familiar. The air feels lighter, and your breath doesn't catch in your throat anymore. It's late morning when you join your aunt by the riverbank, where she's weaving a new fish net. She doesn't mention the boy, or the silence, or the sudden return of the frogs. Instead, she hums a soft tune and pats the ground beside her. You sit, watching as she loops fiber through her fingers with practiced grace. After a few minutes, she says, "They're mating." You glance up. "The frogs." She nods. "You hear that pattern?" She croaks badly twice, then adds a third higher note. "That's the courting call." You tilt your head, listening. Sure enough, some of the frogs are croaking in bursts of 3, followed by splashy silences. Another joins in with a longer, lilting trill. The whole swamp is alive with awkward romance. Your aunt chuckles. They're louder during courtship, bolder too. Same with people. You raise an eyebrow and she grins. You think I didn't see you blushing when that girl from the next village brought you mangoes? You groan. That was just friendship, she says with mock seriousness. Of course. And I only married your uncle for his soup recipe. You laugh despite yourself. Frog mating season is legendary around here. It's part biology, part metaphor. The villagers have built an entire social mythology around it. They say if a girl hears 3 frogs croak in harmony while standing under a banana tree, she'll marry within the year. If a boy dreams of a frog hopping into his rice bowl, he'll find love unexpectedly. Historians still argue whether frog mating patterns actually influenced marriage customs. Some say it's coincidence. Others note the correlation between amphibian season and post-harvest festivals, when communities had time to rest and court each other. You're not a scholar, but you've seen it happen. Every year, right around the first big bloom of frog choruses, the village's social tempo changes. People linger longer after chores. Young couples take extra walks to check the irrigation. And old women suddenly become matchmakers, declaring with certainty that frog dreams are the best omens. You walk back toward the center of the village as the air thickens with the scent of grilled fish and wood smoke. It's nearly midday, and people are gathering near the temple steps. Today's a rest day post-silence. A moment to breathe and joke and eat well. You settle near a group of teenagers who are passing around a bamboo pipe and whispering about which frog calls match which personalities. One claims the deep, slow croaks are husband material. Another says the fast, erratic chirps are definitely heartbreak frogs. You stifle a laugh. It's all nonsense, but fun nonsense. The kind that binds people like shared nicknames or gossip about gods. An older boy pipes up. My grandfather said he picked his bride because she croaked better than the frogs. General laughter. Someone adds. And she left him because he didn't. Even louder laughter. But then someone gets quiet. A girl with a serious expression says, Sometimes, I think they teach us how to love. Everyone pauses. Not mocking, just thinking. You know what she means. Frog courtship isn't elegant. It's clumsy, loud, half luck, half repetition. And still, it works. Pairs form. Eggs are laid. Tadpoles swarm. Life continues. You walk away after lunch, the laughter still echoing behind you, and wander toward the reeds. You're not looking for anything in particular, just following the sound. The frogs are louder again, frenzied. It's the height of the mating surge. You stop at a shallow pond where dozens of frogs have gathered, singing, splashing, lunging. It's chaotic. It's ridiculous. And somehow it's kind of beautiful. You crouch low, watching one particularly bold frog croak at a much larger, entirely disinterested companion. He tries once, twice, 3 times. She hops away. He waits, hopeful. You sigh, relatable. Then you hear footsteps behind you. It's the girl from the mango incident. She doesn't say anything, just crouches beside you, eyes on the frogs. You sit like that for a while, silent but easy. Then she says, They never give up. You nod. Another frog splashes awkwardly into the water, completely missing his landing. The two of you snort in unison. I think that one's me, you say. She smiles. I think that one's everyone. You both laugh again, then fall quiet. Not awkward, just comfortable. The frogs continue their operatic chaos. It's messy, loud, unpredictable, and very much alive. By the time dusk falls, the frog chorus is hitting its peak. Wave after wave of croaks rippling through the paddies like sound has turned liquid. You hear them from every direction. From the water jars near your hut, from the edge of the temple pond, from tiny puddles you didn't know existed until something croaked at your feet. If there's such a thing as a frog symphony, this is its crescendo. It reminds you of a story, one your grandmother told you during a long night of rain when you were much younger. The story of the year the frogs fell silent before you were born. You remember how she leaned close to the lantern and whispered it like a confession. It was 1783, she had said. The year the frogs went quiet and the fields forgot how to breathe. Now, after your recent encounter with the croak crisis, the story lands differently. It doesn't feel like myth anymore. You make your way to the old records hut, where the village's modest archive is kept. Bamboo scrolls, brittle leaf paper ledgers, and a few faded drawings etched with charcoal. The hut smells like old ink and firewood. You're not really expecting to find anything, but the silence from a few nights ago still lingers in your bones. You flip through a brittle scroll and find it, barely legible, but it's there. Year of the snake. Rain halted. Frogs ceased. Crops curled. Fever came. That's all it says. 5 short sentences, but they echo like a gong in your mind. You sit with it a while, imagining what the village must have felt like then. The disbelief, the gradual panic, and worst of all, the silence. Frogs are many things here, timers, matchmakers, spiritual messengers, but they are also guardians of rhythm. Without them, life doesn't just feel empty. It feels unstructured, time unmoored. Historians still debate whether the silence of 1783 was caused by an environmental shift, a freak weather pattern, or even a fungal infection that affected local amphibians. One French traveler documented an eerie quiet during his journey through Annam, claiming that the silence stretched for weeks. But the records are inconsistent, fragmentary. Most of what remains are stories like your grandmother's, half memory, half warning. You step out of the archive hut just as the evening breeze picks up, rattling the coconut palms like polite applause. The frogs, ever present, never pause. It's almost like they're trying to make up for lost time. Back in the village, a group has gathered for a twilight meal on woven mats by the communal well. You join them, plate in hand, and settle between your cousin and an old man who smells like garlic and memory. He's already halfway through a monologue about how frogs once led a caravan safely through a flooded forest, by croaking in rhythm with the clean path. You just had to follow the sound, he insists. A younger boy squints. What if the frogs were lost, too? The old man grins. Then we'd all be doomed together. You eat slowly, the warmth of the rice cutting through the gathering chill. The lanterns glow amber around you, their light catching in bowls of water and someone's polished sandalwood spoon. Then, mid-bite, the croaking shifts. Subtle at first, just a few frogs dropping out of rhythm. Then a whole line of them stops. The air tightens. You freeze. But this time, it's not silence. It's refrain, a deliberate pause. And then, a moment later, they begin again, but differently. Slower, softer, like a lullaby. Everyone notices. Conversations taper. Chewing slows. Someone, maybe your grandmother, whispers. They remember. It's not ominous this time. It's reverent, like the frogs are marking something. Maybe the anniversary of the silence. Maybe the near repeat from just days ago. Or maybe they just know. You lean back on your elbows, full and pleasantly tired, listening as the frogs create a rhythm that feels less like music and more like heartbeat. The boy beside you murmurs, "It's like they're telling us to rest." And that's exactly what everyone starts doing. Mats rolled out, feet washed, lanterns dimmed. You lie back under the open sky, stars blinking through the cloud remnants. The frogs continue, one croak at a time, spaced just far enough apart that you feel them more than hear them. Like distant thunder, like breath. There's something deeply humbling about it. Frogs, with their bulging eyes and unpredictable leaps, aren't exactly what you'd expect to carry memory or meaning. But here they do. They mark the past. They warn of change. And sometimes, like tonight, they remind you to stop talking, stop analyzing, stop trying, and just be. You close your eyes. The croaks roll over you in slow waves. You breathe with them. The next morning, everything smells like wet wood and cooked rice. The storm never came, but the air feels cleaner, like the sky had a good cry somewhere else. You wake slowly, easing out from under your mat like a leaf sliding off the surface of a pond. Outside, the frogs are quiet again, but not in that eerie, hollow way. The silence feels gentle, satisfied, You can still hear the occasional solo croak, like someone yawning from under a damp log. You take your morning walk down the paddy path, toes brushing dew-slick grasses, the day unfolding like a scroll. The village hums softly, pots clanking, someone sharpening a sickle, children arguing over who gets the dry sandal. But even these sounds are background noise to the rhythm in your bones. The frogs have tuned your ears. You walk past the temple pond and pause. One frog stares at you from a lotus leaf. It's unnervingly still, like it's contemplating philosophy. You nod solemnly. It does not blink, probably winning the staring contest. As you continue your walk, you hear a faint splash in the irrigation ditch. You crouch and spot two frogs side by side on a rock. They sit silently, basking in the sunlight filtering through the banana leaves above them. And that's when you start thinking about home, not your hut, not even your village, but something bigger, something older. How everything seems to have rhythm if you pay close enough attention. The frogs didn't just teach you the hours or the seasons. They taught you to listen to patterns, pauses, tone. To know when to speak, when to plant, when to wait. And now when to go back. Because it's time to head home. Not just from your walk, but from this place. This dreamscape of frogs and fields, of silence and storm. There's a gentle tug in your chest, like the kind you feel when the fire burns low or when the last croak of the night signals the end of something. You retrace your steps slowly. Along the path, a neighbor is repairing his roof. He waves. Back from talking to the frogs? He teases. You smile. They didn't say much today. He shrugs. That's because they said enough last night. You nod. He's right. Back at your hut, you sweep the floor without thinking, your mind still caught in the echo of last night's croaks. You notice the dust settles in soft, looping patterns, like sound waves. You almost laugh. Now you're seeing frogs in the floor dirt. You wash your hands in the basin and pause to watch the ripples. Even they feel like echoes. The world's quieter now. Still moving, still warm, still alive, but quieter. As though the frogs have passed the baton back to you. You have to carry the rhythm yourself now. After lunch, you find your grandmother in her garden. She's picking lemongrass, her hands moving with the calm precision of someone who's done this every day for half a century. Going somewhere? She asks, without looking up. You hesitate. I think I need to. She nods. Bring back stories. You smile. I always do. She straightens and points her chin toward the fields. The frogs will miss you. Will they? They always know when someone's gone. And just like that, you're back in the paddies one more time, walking the perimeter, saying quiet goodbyes to the trees, the mud, the air itself. You pass a water buffalo who snorts at you like he's heard this all before. Probably has. At the far end of the path, near the stone bridge, you stop. There's a sound, just one. A short, deliberate croak. You look around. No one in sight. No frog visible. Just the echo hanging in the warm air like a final note. You take a deep breath and walk across the bridge. That night, you sleep beneath a different roof. The mat is scratchier. The air smells of oil and smoke. But as your eyes begin to close, you swear you can still hear them. Faintly, distantly. The frogs. Calling not to wake you or to warn you or to woo a mate, but just to say you were here, and they remember. Days pass, then weeks. You settle into a new routine, new fields, new faces, new noises. The frogs here are different, quieter. Their croaks are shorter, clipped. Maybe they're shy or just formal, like courtiers who don't have time for jokes. Still, you listen. First, it's hard. The sounds are unfamiliar. You miss the long, echoing harmonies of your home village, the layered frog choirs and their uncanny timing. Here, it's more scattered. The fields are wider, the water flatter, and the wind carries away the croaks before they can settle into rhythm. But slowly, you begin to tune in. One evening, you notice a small brown frog crouched near your sleeping mat. It doesn't move when you approach, just blinks once, lets out a sound like a damp hiccup, and hops off. The next night, it returns. You name it Rice Ball. Rice Ball has a terrible singing voice, no projection, slightly off pitch, but shows up nightly like it's clocking in for a shift. You come to find the consistency soothing. Even here, even now, there are frogs to count time with you. One morning, an elder woman from the new village stops by. She's barefoot, sun-dark, and leans heavily on a carved walking stick. "Your frogs are out of tune," she says bluntly. You laugh, nodding. "I noticed." She kneels beside you, dipping her fingers in the irrigation water. "You can help them. You just have to croak back." You raise an eyebrow. "Seriously?" She grins. "If you don't, who will teach them the songs?" So that night, you sit beside the patties and make a fool of yourself. You croak. Badly. Riceball, to his credit, does not run away. Instead, he answers with a croak that sounds like an approving snort. Another frog joins in from the left. Then another. You keep going. And before long, you've got a trio. It's not a symphony, but it's something. The next few days, the frogs grow louder, more confident. Their calls begin to layer again. It's subtle, like a familiar rhythm just beginning to take shape under the noise. You realize you're not just hearing them, you're influencing them. Historians still discuss whether frog populations respond to human-made sound patterns. Some field studies suggest amphibians adapt their calls to the noise around them, mimicking pitch, timing, sometimes even rhythm. Of course, villagers knew that long before researchers put it in a paper. You only need to sit by the water and try. One evening, a boy from the village joins you. He sits cross-legged, chewing on sugarcane, watching the frogs perform. "You made them sing," he says. You shake your head. "They already knew how. I just reminded them." He points to a bullfrog in the weeds. "That one sounds like my uncle snoring." You grin. "Then maybe your uncle's been training them." The boy laughs and tries his own croak. It's horrible, off-key and sputtery. The frogs ignore him. He frowns. "Try again," you say. He does. This time, a frog answers. And just like that, you've got a duet. The next night, 2 more kids show up. Then 4. They bring pebbles to click together, bamboo flutes, even an old gourd they tap with a stick. It's Frog Choir 2.0, less refined, more chaotic, and wildly entertaining. And the frogs? They love it. Within a week, the patties are full of croaks. Not just random bursts, but real rhythm. Sound weaving between the humans and the frogs, like 2 sides of the same song. One night, after everyone else leaves, you sit alone beside the water, listening. You realize that you've done something rare. You've built a bridge, not of wood or rope or language, but of sound. You've shown people how to listen, how to wait for the pauses between croaks and know that they matter just as much as the croaks themselves. You've turned frog music into community rhythm. You think of your old village, of the bridge by the stone path, of old man wet feet, of your grandmother's bent back in the lemongrass, of that one frog who croaked just once to tell you goodbye. You miss them, but now, here, the frogs remember you. One final frog croaks, a deep tone that rumbles like a satisfied sigh. You sigh too. The water ripples, the stars wink, and somewhere, you suspect, a very smug frog is preparing to teach the new generation exactly how it's done. You sit at the edge of the paddy, toes just brushing the water, as twilight pours in like warm tea. This is your last evening here, at least for now. Tomorrow you move again. Another village, another rhythm. Maybe drier fields, maybe frogs that bark like ducks. You've heard that's a thing. But tonight, you're still here. The frogs start slowly. One croak, then silence. Then another tentative. A few more scattered responses. And then, as if on cue, they all join in. Not in perfect harmony. This isn't some storybook farewell. But in that wonderfully imperfect, overlapping rhythm that only frogs seem to pull off. You close your eyes and let the sound settle over you. It's not just a chorus. It's a map. You could walk the entire village with your eyes closed right now, just by listening. You'd know when you passed the wide irrigation ditch, where the frogs are throatier and bold. You'd recognize the higher-pitched chirps near the banana grove, where the ground holds less water but the frogs still find a way. You'd even sense the temple pool, where the frogs croak slowly, like they're old and waiting for incense. It occurs to you now that you don't really need to say goodbye. Not exactly. Because everything that matters has been absorbed by your ears. Your bones. Your rhythm. You rise slowly, brushing the dirt from your palms. There's still one place left to visit. The bridge. You take your time getting there, walking softly along the worn path, past the night-silent banana trees, past the lean-to where someone is quietly shelling beans. The air is thicker now, heavy with stars. The only light is the flicker from a distant oil lamp and the white smudge of the moon peeking over the edge of the world. You reach the bridge and step onto its worn planks. Beneath, the water moves gently, catching the moonlight in long silver ribbons. You crouch, press your hands to the wood, and listen. Croak. There it is. And then another. One close, one far, like a call and answer. And though you'll never know which frog is which, it feels personal. Specific. Like they know. Like they remember. You whisper, "Thank you." And the frogs continue, unbothered. Content. Historians still argue whether frogs in ancient Vietnam held any real ritual significance, or if they were simply part of the sensory background. But you know better now. They weren't background. They were signal, memory, meter, and now melody. You stay on the bridge a long time, not moving, not needing to. Eventually, the frogs begin to quiet again. Not the eerie silence of fear, nor the strained hush of warning. Just the gentle descent into night. The last croak of the evening is small, possibly rice ball. You smile and head home. And now, as your thoughts begin to drift and the edges of the story start to soften, I want you to imagine lying once again in that quiet village hut. The rush of the day has faded. Your limbs are heavy with honest effort. Outside, the last echoes of frog's song ripple through the reeds. Not loud anymore, just enough to know they're there. The world beyond your mat and your breath feels distant now. The oil lamp has been blown out. The moonlight brushes the floorboards. Somewhere nearby, water drips in slow rhythm. You breathe in and out. Easy now. Let yourself feel that smooth, ancient calm, like a stone warmed by sun, or the hush between frog croaks when the world exhales. There is nothing to fix right now. No decisions to make. No crops to plant or spirits to please. Just you and the gentle memory of sound. Every small noise, the flick of wind, the rustle of palm leaves, the low splash of something slipping into water, folds into the fabric of rest. Each one says, "You are safe. You are still. You are part of this rhythm." Let sleep come softly, like mist on the paddies. Let your mind float like a reed on water. And if you hear a frog croak as you begin to drift, let it guide you. Not back into the story, but forward into dreams. You've listened well. You've remembered. Good night.